We got a question a while ago from one of our listeners who asked us, what do you do when one member of a couple has health restrictions so you can no longer do the things you used to do together? I'm still healthy and I want to be active, but he watches TV most of the day now. I want to find a meaningful way to reconnect or to connect that we both enjoy. We're going to try and tackle these questions today. Welcome to the What Could Go Right podcast. We are your hosts, Erik, Orton.
And I'm Emily Orton.
And here we talk about personal growth and sailing. In 2014, we moved aboard a fixer-upper sailboat and bootstrapped a year sailing with our 5 kids, and it changed our lives forever.
We tell the whole story in our memoir, our book, 7 at Sea. On this podcast, we want to help you go from fear to freedom, one adventure at a time. So what do you do when one partner becomes limited by health issues and the other one still wants to be active? How can we still feel connected when we can't do the things that we used to love to do together? I think this question hits home for a lot of people, even if you're not in exactly that same situation where you've both been actively enjoying the same activities and now one of you has a different physical capacity. It can happen when you have different interests. It can happen when you have different skill levels. And certainly it can happen even when you're not permanently disabled in some way, but that you have a temporary incapacity. For example, one of our sons-in-law recently tore his ACL and had to have surgery. And now they are in a situation where they have different levels of physical capacity, even though they're both young and want to be active. And I'm thinking of a time when the first time when Erik went to climb El Cap, and it was at least his intent to do a big wall in Yosemite, which means one that you sleep on overnight. And what seemed to him like the most logical way to make that happen was for me to be his climbing partner. That was really, really scary to me. I didn't have the same skill level. I didn't have the same growing piece, the higher off the ground that I got that he had. I didn't have the same ability with knots. Actually, for him, he became more peaceful and more focused the higher he got. And for me, it was the opposite. I became less peaceful, less focused, less able to remember things, more jittery. And we tried it out in I'll say like a safe setting, controlled environment, which for me meant we had like an instructor that Erik didn't need, but that I wanted. And I just learned that isn't something I'm going to be able to do right now. And us doing this together is going to be unsafe for both of us. I'm not a good partner in this activity. And so maybe a little later, we'll talk about how we handled it as we get into some of the solutions, but we just were not at the same interest or skill level in that. And he was excited and I was terrified. So another example that I'm thinking of recently, not to have a lot of detail, but we've mentioned before, like Erik's parents are getting slapped with some health surprises that is affecting their different levels of ability. And so we've been trying to, like, our head has been in this space trying to figure out how can we maximize the ability, and the capacities that are there while supporting and encouraging in areas that are just a little more of a struggle these days. So anyway, that was something. Did it remind you of any experiences of, people who want to do stuff together but aren't at the same level?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think, and we can, I don't know if the order you want to do this, but rollerblading, cycling. Yeah. I don't know. Do you want to go there now?
Let's go there in a minute. We're going to talk about some solutions in a minute. But first, I want to talk about once you recognize that this is the case, you're going to feel a sense of loss. And you might even use the word grief or grieving. And I recently had a friend tell me, grief shows us what we love. So if you are feeling sad about something, if that's a grief for you, it might be showing you like, the reason I feel so sad about this is because I really love this thing and this is really important to me. And that means like just naming it, like, oh, I really miss this part of it, or I really miss the feeling of connection that we had together. I really miss sharing this activity. Or I really miss competing. Even I know a lot of couples do that. We are not that kind, but some really like to kind of play that way. And so recognizing that those shared activities, and might even feel like a sense of identity that is shifting, and that you miss that, and just being able to label it. I know that's something we've talked about before. Whatever the emotion is, being able to call it out and be aware. Step one.
Yeah. And so, I mean, I just think it's worth. Do you mind if I read the
Yeah.
question again that we got from one of
Yeah.
our listeners? Because I
Yeah.
think just it's so honest and vulnerable. What do you do when one member of a couple has health restrictions so you can no longer do the things you used to do together? I'm still healthy and want to be active, but he watches TV most of the day now. I want to find a meaningful way to connect that we both enjoy. And that's
Mm.
it right there. Finding a meaningful way to connect that you both enjoy. And I think it can be a struggle for the person who no longer has a buddy or a companion to do the activity with, and for the person who can no longer do the activity. And, I don't want to share too many details about my parents' health struggles, but, look, my dad's north of 80 and my mom is just south of 80. They've done a lot of great things in their lives, and they've had a lot of wonderful adventures. And this is just a natural part of getting older. And I think, it comes for all of us eventually. And it's sad in some ways for both my mom and my dad. For my dad was an avid backpacker, an avid camper, and very outdoorsy and adventurous, and he misses that.
Yeah.
And my mom misses being able to do the walking and the camping and the things that she would do with my dad. And so I guess I'll just say that much, that there's some, you're talking about mourning and grief, and I think it's two-sided.
Yeah.
Each person has their own sense of loss,
Mm-hmm.
and that yet from your new reality, how do you then find something that you can enjoy together, do together, and connect? And that's the thing that we're going to try and solve today, or at least
Yeah,
speak
I
to.
love that. And for me, one of the reasons it's so important to identify what it is that you're sad about, what it is that you might be grieving that has shifted, is that resistance to that fact makes it take longer to move forward, right? That obviously that makes perfect sense. But when you're able to accept, okay, this is our new normal. I liked things the way they were. I'm sad that it has changed, but I'm accepting that it has changed. And from that position, you are then able to create something new. But when you stay in wishing things were the way they have been and resisting your reality, then the harder it is to move forward and find new ways to, what did it say, to meaningfully connect in ways that we both enjoy. So, so I want to talk about, you talked about 3 ways to adapt. Maybe you can like outline them for us here.
Yeah. So I think that when there's a shift in physical ability, there's 3 ways to adapt. One is to just adjust and go at the pace or the scale of the person who has the most obstacles. We do that often with Lily. Lily
Mm-hmm.
moves at a certain speed. It's pretty hard to get her to move faster than that. And sometimes that's one of my great frustration, is that I want to go at my pace when in fact we're going together. And the only way to go together is to go at her pace.
I just want to interrupt really quick here and say Lily is our youngest daughter of 5 children, and she has Down syndrome. And um, every person with Downs has a different set of abilities. They're not all the same, but in her case, she has low muscle tone. She has short legs, and she also has a condition that causes her heart to sometimes race, which she takes medication for. And so, for her to be able to do it in a healthy, safe, enjoyable way, she's often going significantly slower than the pack.
Yeah, I went
Yeah.
for a walk with her yesterday. We were walking back home from our daughter's house. And it's hard for me to walk at 25% of my regular pace. I'm just like, this is maddening. But when I can get myself to slow down and go at her pace, there is an ease and a pleasantness to it, but I just have to recalibrate. So step one, method one, and we can come back to this if you want. Method one is to just slow down to the pace and the scale of the person with the most obstacles. And don't do anything beyond their ability or skill set. Just go smaller or slower, whatever it needs to be. That's method one. Method two is to just go separate. And by that saying, hey, you go at your pace, you run. I want to cheer for you. I'm not going to be out there doing it with you, but I'm going to be a fan, whatever that looks like. And one example is we can talk about skiing. You and I skiing the other day. And third is to say, we're going to go together and we're going to go at the same pace, but we're going to go through different methods. We're going to do the same thing, but you might want to swim it. I'm going to do it in a rowboat. Or, you want to, skate it. I'm going to do it on a bicycle, whatever it is. So, those are the three ways, and we can maybe now circle back and drill down on examples.
Perfect. We've talked a few examples about going slower. So let's talk about, I will say one more thing about going slower, which is that you have to just decide that your goal in this activity is to connect meaningfully, not to set a personal record. When you know that your goal is to be together. So on the walk the other day, the goal was to help Lily learn her way around the neighborhood so that she'll be able to visit her sister and her new baby by herself, which is a huge step forward for Lily and her independence. Remembering that is the goal makes it so much easier to slow down. You're like, I'm not trying to get from point A to point B. I'm trying to be with this person.
I think another example of this kind of thing is when we did a trip to southern Utah to Arches National Park, and we met up with some friends of ours who have young kids, and we decided to do some hikes together. And I tend to lean towards sort of the ambitious hike, this, like more challenging, more technical and quicker. But we were going with our friends, more vertical, and they have young kids, age ranges from maybe 16 down to,
I think like maybe it was 4 at the
4
time.
years old. So obviously, and we had Lily with us. So we're doing a hike to some beautiful arches, and we needed to go, but there were a lot of kids in our group that were going to go at a slower pace. And if I remember that, hey, this is about being together with our two families and within our families with our kids, being in this beautiful place. And it's not about trying to set a land speed record or do something really hard. The goal is to do something together. And, there was a lot of effort put into helping Lily sort of scramble up stuff that was easy for me, and for you and a lot of us, but really challenging for her. And so I think just recognizing that if the goal is to go together, you may want to go slower. What's the African proverb that everyone quotes? If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.
In this case, we didn't go far or fast, but we did go together, and it was beautiful. And it was not like, how can we get to the arch as quickly as possible and then bag how many more arches, check them off our box. Like, we actually really love slow travel. And this was just taking that same idea to just one hike, and we had great conversations along the way, and there was plenty of time to stop and wait for the shorter legs to catch up. And yeah, it was really delightful. And it was a joy to see them feel so confident in what they had accomplished. It was really, really awesome. The second one you talked about was cheering for each other. And one of the ways that I saw this, this is a throwback, but when Lily was an 8-month-old baby, I ran a marathon. I don't really consider myself a runner. I haven't wanted to run one again, although I do have a promise out there to one of my sisters that if she goes, I'll go. She hasn't moved that direction, but I recognize that's on it's on my radar. But Eric had no interest in running at all. And so when I would go for long runs on Saturday, he would stay I would go early, so hopefully it wouldn't be too much of an inconvenience, and the kids would just be waking up and starting their slow morning. But he would stay with the kids and I would go out and do my long run. And then when it came time for the race, he brought all of the kids and he stayed with them in a separate hotel room so I could get sleep before race day. We had like a big carb dinner the night before with friends. And then they were there with signs, and they weren't just at the finish line. They came to multiple points where they knew I would be on the race so that they could cheer for me. And I felt so supported that day. And I was really glad to see, all the kids there. And I was grateful that they could see their mom was, had been training for something and was doing something hard. And yeah, like you didn't have to run a single step to be part of that experience.
Yeah, and I had a lot of fun cheering you on, and uh, it was it's so satisfying to be part of somebody's support team in doing something that they love to do, and being unified, being together, as a couple or as friends or siblings doesn't mean you have to do all the same things. You can still be unified in um, the person wants to do the thing. You can be unified in your love for that person by encouraging them, cheering them, supporting them. You did, as you mentioned earlier, you did the same thing for me when I was climbing El Capitan, and you came and cheered. Well, I guess the first one, every time I've done a big wall, you've come and cheered for me.
Well,
except
not the
for one,
last
except for
time.
one, and you, that was hard for you, as I recall.
Yeah.
And I don't wish you to have to sit in the meadow and look up and through binoculars for days on end watching me move slowly up a cliff. But it's nice to have you there when you are there.
One of the ways that I was able to support Eric when he went on his El Cap climb was I helped prepare a lot of and package a lot of the foods that you were going to be carrying up with you.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went up with you on the morning that you started, and I helped carry gear to the base, and I took pictures of you and your partner, and kind of stayed in touch throughout. And then once you triumphed, I was waiting with the kids in the parking lot in the dark for several hours for you guys to show up. And once you arrived, we threw a little party, just our little quiet parking lot party, just cheering for you and saying, wow, you did it. And that was really fun for all of us, and a relief too, because I don't think anybody was concerned that I might die running a marathon, but you know, you were doing something that was a little higher off the ground. And we were really happy when you had your feet back on the parking lot.
Well, you made it special, and as much as I love a good protein bar, having homemade burritos was way better. So you made that experience better, and then also just the welcoming committee is always a fantastic way to finish. Um, so we're talking about ways of cheering each other on. I think another example of this is I took a lady sailing in the Bahamas earlier this year, and she had gone with me the year prior as well. And the first year her husband did not come, and the second year her husband did not come. But he was in the Bahamas when she got off the boat, met her at the dock because they wanted to explore Nassau together. He did not go on the sailing trip because that's not his thing, but they did want to have this experience of being in the Bahamas together. And so he met her at the end and was able to just hug her and congratulate her. And so I think being at the finish line maybe is a metaphor for, being there to welcome somebody as they come back from the thing, and supporting her along the way, financially helping make it happen, making sure that she got to the airport, that she had everything that she needed. Those are all little things that can just that can still create, as the question says, a meaningful way to connect that you both enjoy, and to be, hey, send me pictures when you can. I want to see what you're experiencing. Being interested, being curious, being enthusiastic about what the other person is wanting to do is a way of staying connected, even if you're not doing the same thing.
Yeah, all of those things you just said are really important. It's the attitude that you go into it with. Um, and then the last one you mentioned was going together in a new way.
Yeah.
So, one example I think of is we took Lily to Yosemite National Park and we borrowed a special wheelchair for her that was narrow. It was made out of metal. It had like big fat tires to go
Mm-hmm.
over chunky terrain and up hills. Honestly, we still had a doozy of a time getting her up some of those paths and across the bumps. But that was a way we were able to all go together at our pace. But instead of her walking, she was riding in this like fancy outdoor sports wheelchair. So that's one example.
That is one. Yeah. I think we decided that was not for us. It was, in some ways, it eased the burden, but it created a new burden. And we figured that,
It worked on some of the paths, but some of them I was like, I just don't have the upper body strength for this.
yeah, but that is an example of saying we're going to go differently together. She wasn't hiking, she was riding, but you could go at your own pace. So that, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's one way of doing it. Another one was a few months ago. You love rollerblading. I
Mm-hmm.
don't own any rollerblades. I love to roller skate. I'm more of like a roller rink disco guy.
OG
Uh,
quad
Totes,
skates.
yeah, give me a set of quads and let me rip. But you wanted to rollerblade around the park, and I wasn't equipped for it, and also it's not my jam. But I do love to ride my bike, and so I was like, let's go together, and you can rollerblade, and I'll ride my bike, and we went at about the same pace, so we could talk and do the loop over and over and over again. But we went together, but we went different.
Yeah.
And so I think that's an example of doing the same thing in a different way, each one doing it their own way.
Yeah. Yeah. That was a really great example of it. Um, oh, I was thinking this might be of cheering each other on, but it was another time when we were in Yosemite and Eric had been climbing pretty hard and he broke his ankle, fractured his ankle. And so he had to sit out for a couple of days. And while he was sitting out, he watched over Lily at the campsite, and I was able to take two of our um, older kids who are more into hiking, and I got to do something that had been on my list of things that I wanted to do, but had never happened in all of the times that we'd gone to Yosemite, which was to hike Half Dome and climb the cables and get up to the top. And that was such a joy for me, such a treat and an accomplishment. Be like, oh, this is something that I've been wanting to do, but I just never knew how to make it happen between, um, taking care of the kids while Eric's climbing and doing things that are at Lily's level. And this was just a unique opportunity. And I thought, oh, we're going to be able to actually make this happen. So it was a surprise, and we put it together with almost zero preparation, just like figured it out the night before and then showed up for our pass permit the next morning and just knocked it out. But it was like a really special experience for me. And when I got back, Eric was actually the one waiting in the car looking for us to come out the back of the climb and pick us up so we didn't have to walk those last few hundred yards back to camp when we're so exhausted. And it was really a joy.
I have another example that
Yeah.
just came to mind. I used to do long distance cycling when I was a teenager, and I was in Finland, and I was doing training for a longer race coming up, and my mom was cheering for me for sure. She was enthusiastic. She helped get me registered for the race. I was 14 years old, and she would help me train. And so she was a fan. But one way that we would do different, how are we saying it? The same but separate, or separate, same but different, I
Like
guess,
in
is,
going together in a new way.
yeah, is she was a big help with my training. She would drive me out to a drop off point, leave me there with my bike, and then I would ride home. That's how I would kind of increase. She would take me further and further out, and then I would ride home. And then one story that you've heard me tell a lot is how for the final race, or the final training day, I was going to ride from the town where my mother grew up to Helsinki, which was about 80% of the distance of the race. So it was kind of like I was working up towards peaking. And my mom is not a long distance cyclist, never was, never will be, but she was able to get me started on this race. And then she drove to the other end to meet me, pick me up. And the plan was to take me out for pizza. I wanted to go to Pizza Hut in Finland.
That should be its own category of like, you can go slower, you can do cheering, you can go together in a new way, or you could just buy
go
pizza.
get pizza. I would say pizza or brownies.
Yeah.
Those are both. That's like the fourth category, the pizza brownie category.
Yeah.
So don't do the thing or do it, but just somehow include pizza and brownies. And that's
a meaningful connection.
That's a meaningful connection. So remember that, guys. That's step 4. Anyway, my mom didn't pedal a single, she didn't, do a single kilometer on a bicycle, but she was there to meet me at the end. And so that was another way that I felt deeply connected to my mom, even though we never rode bikes together.
Yeah. And I think don't try to figure it out by yourself. Talk to the other person. Ooh. Talk to the other people that you're with and say like, wow, like I miss doing those things together. But the most important thing to me is that I want to connect with you in a meaningful way. What can that look like for us now? Like, what are things that you enjoy? Teach me about, where you're coming from now. Because just because you can't do these things anymore, I still want to be with you.
Yeah, I think maybe go back and find our episode about mind reading and how mind reading, trying to read somebody's mind is not the best way to connect. Actually talk. And I guess, I'm looking at this question from one of our listeners. I'm still healthy and want to be active, but he watches TV most of the day. I want to find a meaningful way to connect that we both enjoy. And that could literally be, like, I don't know what the activity is. We don't have that information. But let's say it's running, and you want to go run, and your spouse can't run, but I'll bet your spouse can drive a car. And say, what if you followed along at your own pace, and you could have the football game going on your phone in the car? As long as you keep your eye on the road, you can listen to the game or whatever it is that is fun for you. And then, whenever I need to stop for a break, we'll be there. Or if we don't stop until I get to the end, we'll be there, and you can catch me up on what you're watching, and you'll be there where I'm running. That's just an example, one idea. I think the better approach will be to talk about it and come up with what works for you. But if you're in a situation like this, I think the one true thing is that there is a way, there is a solution. We're not going to know what it is, but you can figure it out because you're creative and you're resourceful. And when you love somebody, you don't give up on finding a way.
Well, if there's one thing that I hope you take from this episode, it's what Erik just said, that there is a way forward. There is a way to make a meaningful connection. You're going to figure it out together. And hopefully these are just a half dozen ideas to get you started. We support you. We're excited for you to be connected. This is just part of being mortal, that our capacities shift and our interests change. But if what you want is to have a meaningful connection, it is possible. As we always like to say at the end of our shows, what could go right?
Hey guys, it's Erik. Before we wrap up today, I want to go over the sailing update. For those of you that are interested in sailing with us, I want you to know what is available. So we do have a few spots left for 2025, and then we've also got a bunch of trips to announce for 2026. So buckle up. There's a few to run through here. Our Greece trip, which is happening in later July, is sold out. So that one is now no longer available. And our Croatia trip, I think, is also sold out. People have said they're going to send me deposits today as of this recording. So I think that one is sold out. If you're interested, check in with me. Just hit me a DM, send me a DM, or email me at erik@theawesomefactory.nyc, and we can let you know what's available there. However, we do have some cabins available for our October trip, Mexico, La Paz. beautiful. One of my favorite places to go. You should listen to our podcast episode a couple back where we talk about why it's the most underrated, but most beautiful, one of the most beautiful trips we do. So October 20th through the 25th, we'll be in La Paz, Mexico. Then in November, we've got one spot in our BVI trip for a female spot, November 10th through the 15th. Again, I think that one's going to fill up. There's lots of people looking at that. And December 8th through the 13th, we're in the Bahamas, 1.5 cabins, one full cabin plus a female spot. Again, we've got a few folks interested in that, but at the moment, as of this recording, those are available. So if you want to go sailing with us in 2025, those are your options. And now for 2026, if you need to look further out, here you go. British Virgin Islands, January 5th through the 10th. You'll fly in and out of St. Thomas. We're going to be back again a few weeks later, January 26th through the 31st. So 2 chances to sail in the BVI in January. Hopping over February to March, we're going to go to French Polynesia. It's an amazing place. I haven't been there since 2017, so a number of years. It's a fantastic trip. Not going to lie, it's by far the most expensive trip. It's going to be a one-way from an island called Raiatea out to Bora Bora. So you fly to Tahiti, get a hopper over to Raiatea. We're going to sail over to Bora Bora, and then we fly back from there home. So we're not going to be doing this one again for quite a while. So if you're interested in that, March 8th through the 14th, French Polynesia. We are back in the Bahamas, April 13th through the 18th. This time we're going to go to the Abacos, which is different than where we normally go. So it's going to be a pretty special trip, and I'm excited about that. That wraps up our spring. In the summer, we jump back over to the Med. In June, we're going to be back in Italy, Naples, repeating the trip that we did this year. So fun, so beautiful. June 6th through the 13th. Then in July 11th through the 18th, we will be in Greece. We'll sail in and out of Athens. And then in August 1st through the 8th, we're going to go to Croatia again. So, and then, not spoiler alert, but special bonus feature in September 26th, 2026, we're going to go to Italy for a second time, September 12th through the 19th. It's the shoulder season. All the kids are back in school. Most of the tourists have taken off, but the weather is still gorgeous. So there's 2 chances to go to Italy. BVI in January, French Polynesia in March, Bahamas in April, Italy in June, Greece in July, Croatia in August, and then Italy again in September. So if any of those are of interest to you, email us. I'll give the correct email. hello@theawesomefactory.nyc. theawesomefactory.nyc. And that way, me and the folks that help me out will see that. And we'll get you information, or if you want to ping me on social media, you can DM us and we'll get you details. But if any of those are interest, would love to see if having you aboard is a good fit. So that is the sailing update. Thanks. If you're talking to somebody who's thinking about coming out, what might advice or what would you say to them?
Yeah, I would say, so I have experienced a lot of different types of travel, and I do think it's a very unique and cool experience. Even just, I guess it was yesterday in Sorrento, I was kind of just noting how different it would be to see that city coming overland versus from the water. I think if you were overland, you would never see just the cool architecture on the cliffs, and I appreciated just seeing the world from a completely different view, I think. So that's what I would say. Unique and super cool travel experience.